My world shattered with the force of 6 words. Your daughter is in intensive care. The sterile hospital air stung my lungs as the receptionist's voice echoed in my head. Just 30 minutes earlier, I'd been wheeling my suitcase through my front door, still carrying the scent of European cafes and Mediterranean breezes, expecting to surprise Olivia with Parisian chocolates and Italian leather. Instead, I found an unopened envelope from Northwestern Memorial Hospital leaning against my doorframe, collecting dust for days. How long has she been here? I gripped the counter, knuckles white, jet lag forgotten, as adrenaline surged through my veins. Mrs. Thompson was admitted 6 days ago following a severe auto accident. The receptionist's professional detachment only heightened my growing panic. The ICU is on the 4th floor. 6 days. My only child had been fighting for her life for 6 days, and I'd been taking selfies at the Trevi Fountain, oblivious. The elevator ride to the 4th floor stretched into an eternity. My mind raced with questions that grew more frantic by the second. Why hadn't Blake called me? I'd left my international contact information with both of them. Had something happened to him too? The ICU doors whispered open, revealing a nurse's station where a middle-aged woman looked up from her computer. "I'm Rebecca Harrison," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake inside me. "My daughter, Olivia Thompson, is here. I just found out." Recognition flashed in the nurse's eyes. Linda, according to her badge. "Mrs. Harrison, we've been trying to reach family members all week." Her voice held a note that sent ice through my veins. "Your daughter's condition has been critical since admission." "Where's her husband?" I demanded. "Blake should be here. He should have called me immediately." Linda's eyes flicked toward a colleague before returning to mine. "Mr. Thompson was here briefly during admission. He signed the initial paperwork but hasn't returned since. We've called him multiple times regarding medical decisions." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "That's impossible," I whispered, though something cold and certain was already forming in my gut. He wouldn't just leave her. Linda's expression remained neutral, but her eyes told a different story. "Dr. Patel is your daughter's attending physician. He'll be making rounds soon to discuss her condition. Would you like to see Olivia now?" I nodded, suddenly terrified of what awaited me. "I should prepare you," Linda said gently as she led me down the corridor. "She has extensive injuries and is currently on ventilator support. Nothing, not her warning, not my decades of professional composure, not the countless crisis management situations I'd navigated in my career, could have prepared me for the sight that greeted me when we entered room 412. My beautiful, vibrant Olivia lay suspended in a web of medical technology. Tubes snaked from her mouth, her arms, disappearing beneath the thin hospital blanket. Her face, the face I'd memorized from her first newborn moments, was swollen beyond recognition, mottled with deep purple bruising. A surgical dressing covered the right side of her head where they'd clearly operated. Casts encased her left arm and right leg, elevated slightly on pillows. The steady beep of heart monitors and the rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator were the only sounds in the room. "Olivia," I choked out, carefully taking her unbandaged hand. Her skin felt cool beneath my fingers, nothing like the warm, animated daughter who hugged me fiercely before my vacation. "I'm here, baby. Mom's here now." Linda checked various monitors with practiced efficiency. "She's been stable for the past 48 hours, which is a positive sign. The neurosurgery team successfully reduced the intracranial pressure from her head trauma." "What exactly happened?" I managed to ask, not taking my eyes from Olivia's face, searching for any flicker of response to my voice. "According to the police report, her husband was driving. The vehicle was traveling at approximately 90 miles per hour when it lost control and hit a concrete divider." Linda's clinical description couldn't mask the horror of what she was saying. "Your daughter wasn't wearing a seatbelt. She was partially ejected through the windshield." My knees buckled. Linda guided me quickly to the chair beside the bed. "And Blake?" I asked, a strange calm descending over me as something primal began to replace shock. "Was he injured?" "Minor lacerations and bruising. He was treated in the ER and released that same night." Released. The word hung in the air between us. Blake had walked away from the hospital, from Olivia, with scratches, while she lay shattered, fighting for every breath. "I'll need copies of all her medical records," I said, my voice dropping to the precise, measured tone that had made junior executives tremble during my 30-year career in finance. "And the police report." Linda nodded, seeming almost relieved by my composure. "I'll have everything prepared. And Mrs. Harrison?" It's good you're here. She needs an advocate right now. After she left, I leaned close to Olivia's ear, careful not to disturb any of the equipment keeping her alive. Listen to me, sweetheart. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to find out exactly what happened, and I promise you, I will get answers. I squeezed her hand gently, hoping somewhere in the darkness of her unconsciousness, she could feel I was there. Then I pulled out my phone, the executive in me taking control, while the mother in me fought back tears. The questions hammered in my mind with every beep of Olivia's heart monitor. Where was Blake? Why hadn't he called me? Why would he abandon his wife in this sterile room of machines and tubes? What could possibly be more important than being by her side? My fingers hovered over his contact. I'd start with a simple text. No accusations, no emotions that might make him defensive. Just a mother looking for her daughter's husband during a crisis. Blake, I'm at Northwestern with Olivia. Please call me immediately. I sent it, then turned back to my daughter, gently brushing a strand of hair from her forehead, careful to avoid the bruising. I'm going to find him, Olivia, I whispered, and I'm going to find out why he left you here alone. The monitor beeped steadily as I settled into the chair beside her bed, my body exhausted from travel, but my mind razor-sharp with purpose. My European vacation felt like a distant dream now, replaced by a single mission: discover the truth about what happened to my daughter and why the man who vowed to love her in sickness and in health was nowhere to be found. I had no idea then how deep this rabbit hole would go or how dark the answers would be. But as I watched my only child fight for her life, one thing became crystal clear. Whoever Blake Thompson really was, whatever he was hiding, he had picked the wrong mother to underestimate. The antiseptic hospital air burns my lungs as I stand frozen in the ICU doorway, staring at the unrecognizable face of my daughter. 6 days she's been here, broken, intubated, fighting for life, while I wandered European streets oblivious to her suffering. The rhythmic whoosh of the ventilator punctuates the nurse's clinical explanation. High-speed crash, concrete barrier, ejection through windshield, and Blake, released the same night with minor scratches, vanished without a trace, leaving Olivia to fight alone. As I hold my daughter's cold hand, something ancient and primal awakens within me. The mother whose child lies wounded, the hunter whose target has revealed himself. Each beep of the heart monitor sharpens my focus. Each whoosh of the ventilator fuels my resolve. The questions multiply with every passing moment. Where is he? Why did he leave her? What could be more important than sitting vigil beside his broken wife? I don't have answers yet, but as I send that first text message to Blake, I make a silent vow to my unconscious daughter. I will find him. I will discover the truth, and if he has betrayed her trust, heaven help him when I do. 3 hours into my vigil at Olivia's bedside, Blake still hadn't responded to my message. Each passing minute crystallized my suspicion that something was deeply wrong. The husband who had tearfully promised to cherish my daughter, in sickness and in health, just 8 months ago, couldn't be reached while she lay fighting for her life. Dr. and Patel, a neurosurgeon with kind eyes and a direct manner, had come and gone, outlining Olivia's injuries in excruciating detail. Traumatic brain injury requiring surgery to relieve pressure, punctured lung, lacerated liver, compound fracture of the right femur, multiple broken ribs. The litany of damage turned my stomach, but his cautious optimism about her chances for recovery gave me something to cling to. She's young and was in excellent health before the accident, he assured me. Those factors significantly improve her prognosis, though recovery will be lengthy. When he left, I turned my attention to the stack of documents Linda had provided: police reports, medical records, and insurance forms. The clinical language couldn't mask the horrifying reality. Blake had been driving 93 mph in a 45 zone. His blood alcohol level was 0.11, well above the legal limit. He'd walked away with minor cuts while my daughter had nearly died. And then he'd vanished. Mrs. Harrison? Linda appeared in the doorway. There's an officer here who'd like to speak with you. He was the first responder at your daughter's accident. Officer Ramirez was stocky and serious, with the weathered look of someone who'd seen too many preventable tragedies. He explained that they'd been trying to reach Blake for follow-up questions about the accident. We have reason to believe Mr. Thompson may have been texting at the time of the crash, in addition to the alcohol in his system, he said, his voice quiet but firm. The impact angle suggests he wasn't watching the road for several seconds before collision. White-hot rage surged through me. Have you filed charges? We're building a case for reckless endangerment and possibly vehicular assault. His disappearance complicates matters. Officer Ramirez hesitated. Mrs. Harrison, do you have any idea where your son-in-law might be? I shook my head, then paused. Not yet, but I intend to find out. After he left, I returned to my methodical investigation. I tried calling Blake again, straight to voicemail. I checked the location-sharing app Olivia had set up for family emergencies. Blake's phone location services were turned off. Next, I logged into my banking app. As a wedding gift, I'd added Olivia and Blake to one of my accounts, providing them access to emergency funds if needed. I scrolled through recent transactions, looking for any clue to Blake's whereabouts. What I found stopped my heart. A series of large withdrawals and charges had begun exactly one day after Olivia's accident. Hotel charges in Miami, restaurant bills exceeding $1,000, a yacht rental company, designer boutiques, cash withdrawals totaling over $15,000. While my daughter lay unconscious, her husband was on a spending spree in Miami. My hands trembling with rage, I opened Instagram and searched for Blake's account. He rarely posted, preferring to live life in the moment, as he always claimed. But perhaps his friends weren't so discreet. I didn't have to search long. Blake had been tagged in multiple photos posted just hours earlier by someone named Trent Lockwood. The images showed a luxury yacht filled with laughing people holding champagne flutes. Blake stood center frame in several shots, his arm around a bikini-clad woman who definitely wasn't my daughter, his face unmarked except for a small bandage above his eyebrow, the only visible evidence of the crash that had shattered Olivia's body. The caption read, "Living the dream with the boys, 3 days in and no signs of stopping. Yacht life, Miami living, blessed. 3 days. He'd been partying for 3 days while Olivia fought for her life. I zoomed in on the images, studying details with cold precision. The yacht's name was visible in one shot, Seize the Day. The coastline of Miami provided the backdrop. In another photo, Blake held up a bottle of Dom Perignon, laughing into the camera. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside me. The concerned mother searching for her daughter's missing husband vanished, replaced by the strategic executive who had built her reputation on dismantling opponents who underestimated her. I picked up my phone and called my personal banker, Timothy, who answered despite the late hour. "Rebecca, welcome back. How was Europe?" "Timothy, I need emergency assistance," I cut in, my voice deadly calm. "I need to freeze all accounts that Blake Thompson has access to. Immediately. Credit cards, checking, savings, everything." Timothy's tone shifted instantly to professional concern. "Of course. May I ask what's happened?" "My daughter is in intensive care after a car accident where Blake was driving drunk. He's abandoned her and is currently spending her money on a yacht in Miami with another woman." The stunned silence lasted only a moment before Timothy's keyboard clicked rapidly in the background. "I'm implementing the security protocols now. All shared accounts will be frozen within minutes. His cards will be declined on the next attempt to use them. Thank you." I hesitated, then added, "And Timothy, I need to know exactly when he tries to use those cards and his reaction when they're declined. I'll personally monitor the accounts and alert you immediately of any attempts," he promised. "Rebecca, I'm so sorry about Olivia. Is there anything else I can do?" I glanced at my daughter's still form, the ventilator breathing for her, tubes and wires connecting her broken body to machines that kept her alive. "Yes," I said quietly. "I need you to compile a complete financial history of every transaction Blake has made since marrying Olivia. Every purchase, every transfer, every withdrawal. I need to know exactly what he's done with my daughter's money." "I'll have it for you first thing tomorrow," Timothy assured me. After hanging up, I turned back to Olivia, taking her hand gently in mine. "I've found him, sweetheart," I whispered, "and he's about to discover what happens when he betrays my daughter." I settled deeper into the chair beside her bed, my mind clear despite the exhaustion of international travel and emotional trauma. Blake Thompson was enjoying his expensive champagne on a luxury yacht, believing his wife was safely unconscious and his mother-in-law safely abroad. He had no idea that his carefree celebration was about to come to a spectacular end. I opened my laptop and began meticulously documenting everything I'd discovered: the yacht company, the Instagram posts, the financial transactions. Blake had left a digital trail of his betrayal, and I was following it with the precision that had made me a legend in corporate finance. The ventilator whooshed rhythmically as I worked, each breath it provided for my daughter fueling my determination. Blake would regret the day he decided my Olivia, and by extension me, were someone he could discard so carelessly. The police report lays bare the horrifying truth in black and white. Blake was drunk, speeding, possibly texting when he crashed. But that betrayal pales compared to what I discover next. While Olivia fights for life, her husband is living it up on a Miami yacht, his arm around another woman, champagne flowing freely as he spends my daughter's money. The Instagram photos tell the story his absence tried to hide. Blake hasn't been missing. He's been celebrating. With cold, methodical precision born from decades in the financial world, I make one call that will shatter his carefree paradise. As I freeze every account he has access to, I stare at my daughter's broken body and make a silent promise. This is just the beginning of what I'm about to take from him. The champagne in his glass right now? It's the last he'll enjoy at my daughter's expense. In minutes, his cards will be declined, his access terminated, his borrowed luxury evaporated into Miami's humid air. And he won't know yet that the architect of his downfall is sitting in a hospital room 1,500 miles away, just getting started. Exactly 57 minutes after I froze the accounts, my phone rang. Blake's name flashed on the screen, and I allowed myself a small, cold smile before answering. Rebecca Harrison, I answered calmly, as if this were any business call. Rebecca, what the hell is going on? Blake's voice was slurred, the background noise suggesting he was still on the yacht. My cards are being declined. All of them. Are they? I kept my tone mild, almost curious. How inconvenient for you. Did you do this? Confusion gave way to accusation. You can't just... I'm sitting beside Olivia's hospital bed, I interrupted, each word precise as a surgical instrument. She's on a ventilator, Blake. Do you know what that means? A machine is breathing for her because she can't do it herself. Silence fell on his end, broken only by distant laughter and music. I can explain, he finally managed, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. This trip, it's not what it looks like. I needed to clear my head after the accident. The trauma of it all. Spare me, I cut in. I've seen the Instagram photos. Your trauma looks remarkably like a champagne-soaked party with another woman on your arm. Those are just friends. Officer Ramirez is looking for you, I continued, as if he hadn't spoken. Something about driving under the influence, reckless endangerment, possibly vehicular assault. He seems very interested in speaking with you. The background noise suddenly diminished, as if he'd moved to a quieter location. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, harder, less charming, with an edge I'd never heard before. Listen to me carefully, Rebecca. You need to unfreeze those accounts right now. I have expenses to cover here. Expenses, I repeated, letting the word hang in the air between us. Like the $15,000 in cash withdrawals, or the yacht rental, or perhaps the $3,000 dinner last night? His sharp intake of breath told me he hadn't expected me to know the details. You've been monitoring my spending? That's an invasion of privacy. A laugh escaped me. Short, harsh, entirely without humor. Privacy? You're spending my daughter's money while she's fighting for her life. The daughter you nearly killed with your reckless driving. That's not fair, he protested, though there was a new calculation in his tone. The accident wasn't my fault. The other car... There was no other car, Blake. I've read the police report. You were drunk. You were speeding. You were texting. And Olivia wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Did you even check if she was buckled in before you decided to play race car driver on Lakeshore Drive? His breathing changed, becoming more controlled. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to something almost reasonable, cajoling. Rebecca, we're family. I know you're upset. You have every right to be. But cutting off access to our accounts isn't the answer. I'll come back tomorrow, I promise. We can talk through this like adults. Our accounts? I repeated, focusing on the telling pronoun. They were never our accounts, Blake. They were my accounts that I allowed you access to as a safety net for emergencies. And as of an hour ago, your access has been permanently revoked. You can't do that. The reasonable facade cracked, revealing the fury beneath. That money is mine now. We're married. What's Olivia's is mine. There it was. The truth behind the charming smile and the practiced devotion. In his anger, he'd revealed exactly who he was and what he wanted. Actually, I can. And I have. I kept my voice level, even as satisfaction bloomed within me. By the way, how do you plan to pay for that yacht now? I understand luxury rentals require final payment at the end of the charter. You bitch, he hissed, abandoning pretense entirely. You have no idea who you're dealing with. On the contrary, I replied, I know exactly who I'm dealing with now. The question is, do you? I hung up as he was mid-tirade, then silenced my phone as it immediately began ringing again. Turning back to Olivia, I gently smoothed her hair away from the surgical bandages. Your husband has quite the temper when he doesn't get his way, I told her quietly. Not the charming man you introduced me to at all. Linda entered with fresh IV bags, checking Olivia's vitals with practiced efficiency. Everything's stable, she reported. Her latest scan shows the intracranial pressure continuing to decrease. Dr. Patel is cautiously optimistic. Thank you, I said, feeling the first glimmer of hope since entering the hospital. Linda, if a man named Blake Thompson tries to call or visit, please alert security immediately. He's not to have any contact with my daughter. Linda nodded, her expression professional but understanding. I'll make a note in her file and alert the security desk. Family-only visitation, restricted access. After she left, I opened my laptop again, refreshing the banking portal. Timothy had worked quickly. A detailed report of Blake's spending patterns since marrying Olivia 8 months ago appeared in my secure messages. The picture it painted was damning. Small withdrawals at first, testing the waters, then larger transfers once he realized no one was watching closely. A pattern of high-end restaurants, designer purchases, weekend trips. The transactions had accelerated dramatically in the past 6 days, since the accident. But something else caught my attention. Regular transfers to an account I didn't recognize, beginning just 2 weeks after the wedding. I made a note to have Timothy trace the destination. My phone lit up with a text message that had bypassed the silencing. It was from Timothy himself. Security alert? Blake Thompson attempting to withdraw cash at Miami First National ATM. Request denied. Multiple attempts made. I imagined Blake's growing panic as reality set in. No access to cash. Credit cards declined. A luxury yacht bill coming due. Likely a hotel charge pending as well. His carefully constructed house of cards was collapsing. A second text from Timothy followed. Mr. Thompson on phone with customer service. Extremely agitated. Claiming identity theft. Protocol holding firm. Accounts remain frozen per your instructions. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. Blake's charm wouldn't work on the bank's security protocols. Those had been designed to withstand far more sophisticated manipulators than him. My laptop pinged with an email notification. Someone named Trent Lockwood, the same person who had posted the yacht photos, had just tagged Blake in a new video on Instagram. Curiosity piqued. I clicked the link. The video showed Blake in what appeared to be the yacht's main cabin, screaming into his phone, face contorted with rage. The caption read, "When the cards get declined and the party's over, someone's in trouble. Her meltdown on champagne problems." I watched, cold satisfaction spreading through me as Blake threw what could only be described as a tantrum, hurling a champagne glass against a wall while whoever was filming laughed in the background. So much for the devoted husband act, I murmured to Olivia. Your friends are documenting your complete meltdown for social media, Blake. Not a good look. I downloaded the video, adding it to my growing file of evidence. Then I sent a quick message to Officer Ramirez, letting him know that Blake Thompson could be found on a yacht called Seize the Day in Miami. The ventilator continued its rhythmic whooshing as I settled back in the chair beside Olivia's bed. Phase 1 of my response was complete, cutting off Blake's financial access. Phase 2, legal consequences, was now in motion, and I was just getting started. Morning arrived at Northwestern Memorial with the shift change of nurses. I dozed intermittently in the recliner beside Olivia's bed, waking at every change in the rhythm of her monitors, every entrance of medical staff checking vitals. Linda finished her night shift with a gentle update. She had a stable night. That's positive, especially with brain injuries. I nodded gratefully, stretching stiff muscles that protested the uncomfortable sleeping arrangement. Any word on when they might try reducing the sedation? Dr. Patel will discuss that during rounds. The latest scans are encouraging. She hesitated, then added, Officer Ramirez called the nurses' station around 5 a.m. He asked that you contact him when you're available. My phone had accumulated dozens of notifications overnight, multiple missed calls from Blake, increasingly desperate voicemails, text messages alternating between threats and pleas. Several alerts from Timothy detailing continued attempts to access frozen accounts, and most interestingly, a string of notifications from social media where Blake's yacht meltdown had gained unexpected traction. After freshening up in Olivia's private bathroom and obtaining blessed coffee from the nurse's lounge, I called Officer Ramirez. "Mrs. Harrison," he answered promptly. "I wanted to update you on the situation with your son-in-law." "You found him?" I asked, stepping into the hallway to avoid disturbing Olivia. "Miami-Dade police made contact with Mr. Thompson last night aboard the yacht you identified. They were unable to detain him on our charges immediately due to jurisdictional procedures, but they did inform him he's wanted for questioning in Chicago, so he's still free," I stated flatly. "For now. But there's been a development." Ramirez's voice took on a note of satisfaction. "It seems Mr. Thompson was unable to pay for his yacht charter. When the company attempted to process his card for the final payment this morning, it was declined. All his alternative payment methods were similarly rejected." I allowed myself a small smile. How unfortunate for him. "Indeed, the charter company has filed charges for theft of services. Miami-Dade is now actively looking for him again, as he apparently left the marina sometime during the night. So he's on the run," I concluded. "It appears so. We flagged his passport in case he attempts to leave the country, though that seems unlikely given his financial situation." Ramirez paused. "Mrs. Harrison, I should warn you, individuals in his position often attempt to contact family members for assistance. If he reaches out, he already has," I informed him, "multiple times. I have no intention of helping him evade responsibility." After ending the call, I returned to Olivia's bedside, updating her one-sided on recent developments as I'd been doing since arriving. The nurses had encouraged me to speak to her normally, explaining that many coma patients later reported awareness of conversations during their unconscious state. "Your husband is having a very bad morning, sweetheart," I told her, gently holding her uninjured hand. "Turns out luxury yachts expect payment. Who knew?" Dr. Patel arrived for morning rounds, bringing cautiously optimistic news. Olivia's latest brain scans showed reduced swelling. If the improvement continued, they planned to begin reducing her sedation tomorrow to assess her neurological function. "Recovery from traumatic brain injuries is rarely linear," he cautioned. "We need to prepare for a long road ahead with potential setbacks." "I understand," I assured him. "I'm not going anywhere." After he left, I opened my laptop to review Timothy's overnight report. He'd successfully traced the mystery account receiving regular transfers from Blake. It belonged to a Jennifer Sanderson in Tampa, Florida. The name meant nothing to me, but a quick social media search revealed a stunning brunette in her early 30s whose profession was listed as wellness consultant and lifestyle coach. More interesting was a photo from 6 months ago, 2 months after Olivia and Blake's wedding, showing Jennifer on a beach with a familiar figure. The caption read, "Weekend getaway with my love, secret rendezvous." The man's face wasn't visible, just his back as he gazed out at the ocean, but I recognized Blake's distinctive shoulder tattoo, the tribal design he claimed represented freedom and ambition. My blood ran cold. Blake hadn't just abandoned Olivia after the accident. He'd been betraying her all along. I was still processing this discovery when my phone chimed with a text from an unknown Miami number. "Rebecca, it's Blake. My phone died. We need to talk. This has all gone too far. I'm coming back to Chicago today. Please call me." I ignored it, focusing instead on composing an email to Timothy requesting everything he could find on Jennifer Sanderson. If Blake had been funneling my daughter's money to this woman, I wanted to know exactly how much and for how long. My phone chimed again. "I know you're reading these. Look, I screwed up, okay? But cutting me off completely is extreme. I need access to at least one card to get home to Olivia. Don't you want me there with her?" The audacity was breathtaking. After abandoning her for 6 days to party in Miami with another woman, likely one of many if Jennifer Sanderson was any indication, he was attempting to portray himself as the concerned husband desperate to return to his wife's side. A third message arrived. "If you don't help me, I'll have to explain to Olivia why her mother left me stranded without resources. Is that what you want when she wakes up? For her to know you tried to destroy our marriage?" There it was, the threat, the manipulation, the calculated play on family loyalty. I could almost admire the technique if it weren't so transparent. My response was brief. Officer Ramirez is eager to speak with you about driving under the influence and reckless endangerment. I suggest you use your return to Chicago to visit the police station first. As for resources, perhaps Jennifer Sanderson in Tampa can help. His reply came instantly. Who the fuck is Jennifer? What are you talking about? I didn't bother responding. Instead, I forwarded our entire text exchange to Officer Ramirez, adding Jennifer Sanderson's information and the evidence of Blake's ongoing infidelity. The morning progressed with a steady stream of medical personnel checking Olivia's condition. Physical therapists moved her limbs gently to prevent muscle atrophy. Respiratory specialists adjusted ventilator settings. Each interaction reinforced the severity of her injuries and the long recovery ahead. Recovery that Blake had clearly had no intention of supporting until his financial access was cut off. Shortly after noon, Timothy called with another update. Rebecca, Blake Thompson just tried to use his secondary credit card, the one he kept in Olivia's name but that you weren't aware of until yesterday. And? I prompted, stepping into the hallway again. We froze that one too, of course. But here's the interesting part. He was attempting to purchase a one-way ticket to Cancun, Mexico, not Chicago. So much for his text about rushing back to Olivia's side. Can you send me the details? Already done. I've also taken the liberty of alerting the airline's security team, since using Olivia's credit card while she's incapacitated constitutes potential fraud. Thank you, Timothy, I said, genuine appreciation in my voice. You've gone above and beyond. It's the least I can do. My sister went through something similar with her ex-husband. His voice hardened slightly. Men who take advantage of women deserve everything that's coming to them. After ending the call, I stood in the hospital hallway, watching medical staff hurry past. Blake wasn't just a neglectful husband who'd made a terrible mistake. He was actively attempting to flee the country, using my daughter's credit to escape the consequences of nearly killing her. The phone in my hand buzzed with yet another message from Blake, this one reverting to threats. You've made a serious mistake. I have rights to that money as Olivia's husband. My lawyer will destroy you for this financial interference. I smiled grimly at the empty threat. In my 30-year finance career, I'd faced down corporate raiders and hostile takeovers from men far more powerful and sophisticated than Blake Thompson. His legal posturing was as empty as his promises to Olivia had been. Returning to my daughter's room, I found Linda preparing to end her shift. Dr. Patel ordered another scan for this afternoon, she informed me. If the results continue to show improvement, they'll begin weaning the sedation tomorrow morning. Thank you for everything, Linda, I said sincerely. Your care for Olivia has been extraordinary. After she left, I settled back beside my daughter, taking her hand gently in mine. I'm learning some difficult truths about your husband, sweetheart, I told her quietly. But don't worry, I'm handling it. By the time you wake up, you'll be protected from whatever he might try next. The ventilator continued its steady rhythm as I opened my laptop again, preparing for the next phase of dismantling Blake Thompson's carefully constructed facade. Day 3 of my hospital vigil brought the first real change in Olivia's condition. Dr. Patel and his team began the careful process of reducing her sedation, watching for signs of neurological response as the powerful drugs slowly cleared her system. This will take time, he cautioned as he checked her pupils' reaction to light. The brain awakens gradually after trauma. Don't expect immediate consciousness. I nodded, having spent the night researching traumatic brain injuries and recovery timelines. What signs should I watch for? Spontaneous movement, changes in breathing patterns, eye-opening even briefly. Report anything unusual immediately. Throughout the morning, I divided my attention between Olivia and the growing pile of evidence against Blake. Timothy had delivered beyond my expectations, providing a comprehensive dossier that painted a disturbing picture of the man my daughter had married. Blake Thompson's financial betrayal went far deeper than the post-accident spending spree. For the entire 8 months of their marriage, he had been systematically siphoning money from their joint accounts. Small transfers at first, testing boundaries, establishing patterns, then progressively larger amounts as his confidence grew. Jennifer Sanderson wasn't his only side relationship. Timothy had identified 3 separate women receiving regular payments from Blake, all in different cities. The wellness coach in Tampa, a yoga instructor in Phoenix, a personal stylist in Nashville. each connected to Blake through discreet but traceable financial threads. Most damning was the discovery that Blake had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy on Olivia just 2 months after their wedding, naming himself as the sole beneficiary. The policy included double indemnity for accidental death, a detail that sent chills down my spine when considered alongside the high-speed crash he had walked away from with barely a scratch. I was compiling these findings into a report for Officer Ramirez when my phone rang with an unfamiliar Chicago number. Mrs. Harrison? This is Detective Morales with Financial Crimes. Officer Ramirez suggested I contact you regarding your son-in-law, Blake Thompson. I straightened in my chair. Yes, Detective. What can I help with? We've been investigating Mr. Thompson for several weeks on unrelated matters. Your information about his activities in Miami provided useful context. Her professional tone couldn't quite mask her interest. I understand you've frozen his access to family accounts? I have. After discovering he abandoned my critically injured daughter to party in Miami, I took steps to protect her assets. Smart move, Detective Morales commented. Mrs. Harrison, would you be willing to come to the station when possible to make a formal statement? Mr. Thompson's activities appear to extend beyond simple marital infidelity. I can't leave my daughter right now, I explained. She's in critical condition, and they're beginning to reduce her sedation today. I understand completely. I'd be happy to come to you if that works. The information you've gathered could be vital to our investigation. We arranged for her to visit the hospital that afternoon. After ending the call, I turned back to Olivia, watching for any sign that she might be emerging from the chemically induced coma. The police are very interested in your husband, sweetheart, I told her, continuing our one-sided conversations. It seems you weren't his only victim. A nurse I hadn't met before, her badge read Sophie, entered to check Olivia's vitals. Talk to her as much as possible, she encouraged, adjusting an IV line. Familiar voices can help guide patients back as sedation lifts. I've been telling her everything that's happening, I admitted, though I wonder if learning about her husband's betrayal is really what she needs right now. Sophie's hands stilled momentarily. You'd be surprised what patients process during emergence. Sometimes understanding the truth, even difficult truths, provides necessary closure. Her words stayed with me after she left. Would knowing Blake's true nature help Olivia heal or compound her trauma? It was a question without an easy answer. My phone buzzed with a text from Timothy. Blake Thompson, attempting to access home equity line of credit on Chicago property. Request denied due to joint ownership requiring dual signatures. So, he was trying to mortgage their house now, the house I had helped them purchase as a wedding gift, insisting on keeping Olivia as co-owner on the deed, despite Blake's subtle attempts to have it placed solely in his name. Another bullet dodged thanks to maternal intuition. Detective Morales arrived shortly after lunch, professional and focused. In her early 40s with shrewd eyes that missed nothing, she reminded me of myself at that stage of my career. Blake Thompson first appeared on our radar 3 months ago, she explained, after expressing genuine sympathy for Olivia's condition. A previous girlfriend filed a complaint alleging he had opened credit accounts in her name without permission. The case seemed straightforward until we discovered similar complaints in 2 other states. He's done this before, I stated, pieces clicking into place. She nodded. We believe, Mr. Thompson targets women with assets or good credit, establishes relationships, then systematically exploits their finances. Your daughter appears to be his latest victim, though the vehicle accident adds a disturbing new dimension. I shared everything I had discovered, the multiple women receiving payments, the life insurance policy, the attempted escape to Mexico. Detective Morales took careful notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. The Miami-Dade police have issued a warrant for his arrest on the theft of services charge, she informed me. Once apprehended, we can extradite him to face charges here in Chicago. What about the accident? I asked. Olivia nearly died because of his reckless driving. Officer Ramirez is building that case separately. The blood alcohol evidence combined with the speed and texting creates a strong foundation for serious charges. She hesitated. Mrs. Harrison, given the life insurance policy and the pattern of behavior, we're also investigating whether the accident was entirely accidental. The implication hung in the air between us. Had Blake deliberately caused the crash hoping to collect on Olivia's insurance? The thought was almost too monstrous to contemplate. You think he tried to kill her? I said flatly. We're exploring all possibilities, Detective Morales replied carefully. The policy, his immediate abandonment of the scene, the attempt to flee the country, these raise serious questions. After she left, I sat beside Olivia, processing this darker possibility. The ventilator continued its steady rhythm, though the doctors had adjusted the settings as they monitored her ability to initiate breaths independently. I knew something was off about him from the beginning, I told her quietly. But I never imagined anything like this. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you better. A slight twitch of Olivia's fingers against mine sent my heart racing. I watched intently, wondering if I'd imagined it when it happened again. A definite, if weak, pressure against my hand. Olivia? I leaned closer, squeezing her hand gently. Can you hear me, sweetheart? No further response came, but I immediately alerted the medical team. Dr. Patel confirmed it was a positive sign, though he cautioned against expecting too much too soon. The journey back from brain injury is measured in small victories, he reminded me. This is a good sign, but patience remains essential. That evening, as I prepared for another night in the uncomfortable recliner, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Thinking it might be related to the investigation, I answered. Mrs. Harrison? A woman's hesitant voice came through. You don't know me, but I think we need to talk about Blake Thompson. Who is this? I asked, instantly alert. My name is Melissa Winters. I was engaged to Blake 2 years ago, before he met your daughter. Her voice trembled slightly. I just saw his meltdown video going viral online, and I recognized him immediately, though he used a different name when I knew him. I sat up straighter. I'm listening. The police never believed me when I tried to report what he did. Maybe they'll believe you. She took a deep breath. Mrs. Harrison, Blake isn't just a cheater and a thief. He's dangerous. And if what I'm reading online about your daughter's accident is true, then history is repeating itself in the worst possible way. What do you mean? I asked, though a terrible suspicion was already forming. 2 years ago, Blake, or Jason, as I knew him then, took out life insurance on me. 3 weeks later, he was driving when we had a serious accident. I was hospitalized with multiple injuries. He walked away without a scratch. Cold certainty settled in my chest, and then he disappeared. Yes, along with my savings and everything else he could access. The police called it an unfortunate accident, and Blake's behavior morally reprehensible, but not criminal. Bitterness colored her voice. I've spent the past 2 years rebuilding my life and credit. Melissa, I said, my executive mind already calculating the implications of this new information. Would you be willing to speak with the detectives investigating Blake? Your experience could be crucial evidence. That's why I'm calling. I saw the news about your daughter, and I couldn't stay silent this time. Not if he's hurt someone else the same way. After getting her contact information and connecting her with Detective Morales, I returned to Olivia's bedside with renewed determination. Blake Thompson hadn't just betrayed my daughter. He had potentially tried to kill her as part of a pattern of predatory behavior targeting women. The small pressure of Olivia's fingers against mine earlier took on new significance. She was fighting her way back to a world where her husband was not who she thought he was, where the life she had built was constructed on lies. I would make sure she didn't face that reality alone, and I would ensure that Blake Thompson never had the opportunity to harm another woman again. Outside the hospital window, Chicago's lights glittered against the night sky as I settled in for another vigil beside my daughter. The battle for justice had just gained powerful new ammunition, and for the first time since finding Olivia in the ICU, I felt absolute certainty that Blake would pay for what he had done, not just to Olivia, but to all the women whose lives he had systematically destroyed. Squeeze my hand if you can hear me, Olivia. 5 days after my return, my daughter's eyelids fluttered in response to my voice. The medical team had been gradually reducing her sedation, and signs of consciousness had been increasing. Small movements, changes in breathing patterns, and now, this deliberate response to verbal commands. Dr. Patel observed with measured optimism as Olivia's fingers weakly contracted around mine. Excellent, he noted, making an entry in her chart. Purposeful movement is a very positive indicator. We'll proceed with removing the ventilator today if her respiratory parameters remain stable. The rush of emotion nearly overwhelmed me. After days of uncertainty, watching machines breathe for my child, this simple gesture, squeezing my hand, felt miraculous. As the doctor left, my phone vibrated with a text from Detective Morales. Thompson located and detained in Key West, attempting to board private boat to Bahamas, being held for Miami-Dade charges first, then extradition to Chicago. Will update when transfer scheduled. Blake's desperate flight had ended. After the yacht incident and credit freeze, he had apparently convinced someone to drive him to Key West, where he'd attempted to bribe a fishing boat captain to take him to the Bahamas. The captain, recognizing him from news reports about the viral meltdown video, had alerted authorities. "They've caught him, Olivia," I told her, continuing our one-sided conversations that now seemed increasingly likely to be heard. "Blake won't hurt you or anyone else again." Throughout the day, Olivia showed more signs of emerging consciousness. By evening, the respiratory team successfully removed the ventilator, replacing it with supplemental oxygen delivered through a nasal cannula. Watching her breathe independently for the first time in nearly 2 weeks brought tears to my eyes. That night, as I dozed in the recliner beside her bed, a hoarse whisper woke me. "Mom?" I bolted upright to find Olivia's eyes open, confused but unmistakably aware. The moment I'd been praying for had arrived with stunning suddenness. "I'm here, sweetheart," I said, gently taking her hand. "You're in the hospital. You've been unconscious for almost 2 weeks." Her brow furrowed with effort. "Accident?" "Yes. The car crashed. Do you remember anything?" She closed her eyes, fatigue evident even after this brief exchange. "Blake. Driving fast. Arguing. Then nothing." They had been arguing. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. "Rest now," I soothed, pressing the call button for the nurse. "I'll be right here when you wake up." As medical staff rushed in to assess her awakening, I stepped into the hallway, emotion finally overwhelming my carefully maintained composure. My daughter was back. The road to recovery remained long, but this crucial first step filled me with renewed determination. Blake Thompson might have taken many things from Olivia, but he wouldn't take her future. Not while I had anything to say about it. I texted Detective Morales with the update, "Olivia awake and speaking. Remembers arguing with Blake before crash. Will update as she recovers more memories." Her reply came quickly. "Excellent news on both counts. Thompson being processed in Miami. Evidence mounting daily. We'll talk soon." Justice was coming, and Olivia was awake to see it served. He said I was holding him back. 3 days after regaining consciousness, Olivia's voice was stronger, though still raspy from the intubation. We sat in her hospital room, now modified for her improving condition. The head of the bed elevated, fewer monitoring wires, physical therapy equipment, ready for the beginning of her long rehabilitation process. "Blake kept talking about this big Miami real estate opportunity," she continued, her fingers absently tracing the edge of her blanket. "Someone he met at a networking event was offering him a partnership position. He wanted me to liquidate my investment portfolio to fund it." I kept my expression neutral, letting her tell the story at her own pace. Memories were returning in fragments, some clear, others hazy, all painful. "I refused," Olivia said, a flash of her inherent strength showing through. "I told him the numbers didn't add up, that I wouldn't risk our security on another one of his sure things. He got so angry, Mom. I'd never seen him like that before." "What happened next?" I prompted gently when she fell silent. "We were driving home from dinner. He'd been drinking, checking his phone constantly. I remember telling him to slow down." Her voice faltered. "He said something like, 'You never support me,' and then went even faster. I was scared. I remember reaching for my seatbelt, and then nothing until waking up here." Each word confirmed what I'd pieced together through bank records, police reports, and witness statements. Blake had deliberately endangered Olivia when she refused to fund his latest scheme, possibly hoping for insurance money if the worst happened, certainly punishing her for standing in his way. "Sweetheart, there are some things you need to know about Blake," I began carefully. "While you were unconscious, I discovered information that's going to be difficult to hear." Over the next hour, I gently explained what I'd uncovered: the financial exploitation, the other women, the life insurance policy, his abandonment after the accident. I deliberately omitted Melissa Winter's experience for now, not wanting to overwhelm her with the suggestion that the crash might have been intentional. Olivia listened in silence, tears streaming down her face. When I finished, she stared out the window for several long moments. "I feel so stupid," she finally whispered. "How did I not see any of this?" "You're not stupid," I countered firmly. "Blake is a practiced manipulator. He's done this before, targeting successful women for financial gain. But I should have known. The signs were there. Mysterious business trips, unexplained expenses, his resistance to financial transparency. She looked down at her damaged body, still encased in casts and bandages. I guess I'm paying the price for that blindness now. No, I took her uninjured hand. You're not to blame for his actions, and he will be held accountable. Blake has been arrested in Florida. He's facing multiple charges here in Chicago, including reckless endangerment and financial fraud. A shadow crossed her face. He'll probably charm his way out of it. He's very convincing when he wants to be. Not this time, I assured her, allowing a small, grim smile. I've made sure of that. I explained the evidence trail I'd compiled, the police investigation, and the financial protections I'd put in place. For the first time since awakening, a hint of relief softened Olivia's expression. Thank you for being here, she said quietly, for handling everything while I couldn't. That's what mothers do, I replied simply. Dr. Patel arrived for afternoon rounds, pleased with Olivia's neurological progress, but cautious about the long rehabilitation ahead. Physical therapy would begin tomorrow, the first step in a recovery process measured in months, not days. After he left, Olivia's expression turned contemplative. You cut your trip short, didn't you? You weren't supposed to be back for another 2 days when the accident happened. I nodded. I decided to surprise you. Good thing I did. If you hadn't come back early, she didn't finish the thought, but she didn't need to. We both understood the implications of what might have happened if Blake had maintained control of her care and finances. I've been thinking, she said after a moment. When they finally discharge me, I don't want to go back to the house. Too many memories there. You'll stay with me, I assured her. I've already started preparing the guest suite on the first floor, so you won't have to manage stairs during recovery. Relief washed over her features. What about the house? Blake's name is on the deed too. Actually, it isn't. I smiled at her surprised expression. Remember how Blake kept forgetting to sign those final ownership transfer papers? I insisted on keeping the property in your name until those documents were completed. Another instance of maternal intuition I'm particularly grateful for now. For the first time since the accident, Olivia laughed. A small, pained sound, but genuine. You never trusted him, did you? Let's say I had reservations, I admitted, but I respected your choice and hoped I was wrong. Next time, don't be so respectful, she said dryly. Just tell me when you think I'm making a terrible mistake. Deal, I agreed, relieved to see glimpses of her spirit returning despite everything. My phone chimed with a message from Detective Morales. Thompson's extradition approved. Transfer to Chicago scheduled for tomorrow. Prosecutor adding charges based on new evidence from financial investigation. Would Ms. Thompson be ready for preliminary statement within the week? I showed the message to Olivia, who straightened slightly against her pillows. Yes, she said firmly. I want to tell them everything I remember. I want him to face consequences for what he did. As I typed the affirmative response, I felt a shift in the atmosphere, from shock and grief toward something more resolute. The road to recovery remained daunting, but Olivia was facing it with growing determination, the first sparks of her inherent strength rekindling. Blake had underestimated both Harrison women, a mistake he would have ample time to contemplate from behind bars. Are you absolutely certain you want to do this? I studied Olivia's face, searching for any sign of hesitation. No one would blame you for focusing solely on your recovery right now. 2 weeks after regaining consciousness, Olivia sat in a wheelchair beside me in the small conference room the hospital had provided for this purpose. Despite significant progress, breathing independently, beginning physical therapy, cognitive functions largely intact, she remained physically fragile, her body still mending from devastating injuries. Yet her expression held unwavering resolve. I need to see him, Mom. I need him to look me in the eye after what he did. Detective Morales had arranged this controlled confrontation at Olivia's request. Blake, now in custody in Chicago, had agreed to the meeting, likely hoping to manipulate his way back into Olivia's good graces, unaware that she now knew everything. Remember, this is being recorded, Morales reminded us from her position near the door. Anything said can be used as evidence. I'll be right here the entire time. Olivia nodded, adjusting the light blanket covering her legs. The surgical incisions, casts, and visible bruising told the story of Blake's recklessness more eloquently than any words could. When the door opened and officers escorted Blake in, I felt Olivia tense beside me. He looked markedly different from the charming son-in-law I remembered. Unshaven, hollow-eyed, the confident posture replaced by slumped shoulders. The orange jumpsuit completed the transformation from successful real estate broker to criminal defendant. His eyes widened at the sight of Olivia's injured state, a flicker of genuine shock crossing his features before his expression rearranged into practiced concern. "Liv," he began, his voice soft with rehearsed emotion. "My God, I've been so worried. They wouldn't let me see you." Olivia said nothing, simply watching him with an intensity that seemed to unnerve him. "This is all a huge misunderstanding," he continued, directing his gaze to include me. "Rebecca, you have to believe me. I panicked after the accident. It was traumatic seeing Olivia injured, and I made terrible choices afterward. But I never intended any harm. The performance was impressive, the right mix of remorse and earnestness, the subtle quiver in his voice suggesting overwhelming emotion. Had I not seen the evidence of his true nature, I might almost have believed him." Olivia still hadn't spoken, her silence forcing Blake to fill the uncomfortable void. "The money? The trip to Miami. I can explain everything. I was raising funds for your medical care, networking with potential investors who could help with the expenses." His expression turned pleading. "You know how much I love you, Liv. Everything I've ever done was for our future together." Finally, Olivia spoke, her voice quiet but steady. "Tell me about Jennifer Sanderson." Blake froze, genuine confusion crossing his face. "Who?" "The wellness coach in Tampa. The one you've been sending my money to since 2 months after our wedding." Olivia's gaze never wavered. "Or maybe you'd prefer to explain the life insurance policy you took out on me without my knowledge." The mask slipped just for an instant before Blake attempted to recover. "Liv, these accusations are coming from a place of misunderstanding. Your mother has been filling your head with—" "Stop!" Olivia raised her hand, the IV line still attached to her wrist, a stark reminder of her condition. "I've seen the evidence, Blake. All of it. The transfers, the other women, the attempted escape to Mexico. I remember you speeding up when I told you to slow down. I remember you checking your phone instead of watching the road." The pretense of innocence disappeared entirely, replaced by cold calculation as Blake realized the performance wasn't working. His eyes darted to Detective Morales, then back to Olivia. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said, voice hardening. "Without me, you're nothing." Olivia smiled then, a small, knowing smile that seemed to unsettle Blake more than any accusation. "No, Blake, without you, I'm safe, and you're going to prison for a very long time." She nodded to Detective Morales, signaling she'd heard enough. As officers moved to escort Blake out, he turned back, desperation replacing calculation. "Olivia, please! We can work this out. Everything I did for us." But Olivia had already turned away, her eyes meeting mine with quiet triumph despite the tears gathering there. She had faced her betrayer and emerged stronger, the first significant victory in her journey toward both physical and emotional healing. As the door closed behind Blake, I squeezed my daughter's hand gently. No words were necessary. We both understood what had just happened. Olivia had reclaimed her power from the man who had tried to destroy her, and it was just the beginning. "Just 5 more steps, Olivia. You're doing great." 3 months after the accident, my dining room had been transformed into a makeshift physical therapy center. Exercise mats covered the hardwood floor, resistance bands hung from doorknobs, and a set of parallel bars, installed by professionals, dominated the space where my antique mahogany table had once stood. Olivia gripped the bars tightly, sweat beading on her forehead as she forced her healing body forward. Each step represented a small victory against the injuries that had nearly claimed her life. The wheelchair sat empty at the end of the bars, a reminder of how far she'd come and how far she still had to go. "Last one," encouraged Megan, the physical therapist who came to our home 3 times weekly. "Push through it." With a determined grunt, Olivia completed the final step, then sagged slightly against the bars. "Done," she announced, triumph evident despite her exhaustion. "That's 2 more than yesterday," Megan noted, making an entry in her treatment log. "Your endurance is definitely improving." I watched from the doorway, a cup of tea cooling in my hands, unwilling to interrupt this hard-won moment of achievement. Olivia's recovery had progressed in fits and starts, neurological function returning more quickly than physical strength, cognitive processing occasionally lagging behind both. The traumatic brain injury had left subtle deficits that revealed themselves in unexpected ways. Difficulty finding words sometimes, emotional regulation challenges, persistent headaches that medication only partially addressed. Yet her determination never wavered. Each setback seemed to fuel her resolve rather than diminish it. "Mom, did you hear?" Olivia called, spotting me in the doorway. "2 more steps than yesterday." "I heard," I replied, entering the room as Megan helped her transfer back to the wheelchair. "Absolutely fantastic progress. At this rate, we might transition to a walker within a few weeks," Megan suggested, packing her equipment. "Though we'll take that decision day by day, based on stability and endurance." After the therapist departed, I wheeled Olivia to the kitchen for lunch. These ordinary moments, sharing meals, discussing news, planning small outings to the garden when weather permitted, had taken on profound significance. Each represented normalcy reclaimed from the chaos Blake had created. "Detective Morales called while you were in therapy," I mentioned, setting a plate of chicken salad before her. "Blake's legal team is pushing for a plea deal." Olivia's hand paused halfway to her water glass. "What kind of deal?" "They're offering guilty pleas on the financial fraud and reckless endangerment charges in exchange for dropping the attempted murder investigation." The prosecutor had been building a case that the accident wasn't simply reckless driving, but a deliberate attempt on Olivia's life. Melissa Winter's testimony about her similar experience with Blake, combined with the life insurance policy and his immediate abandonment after the crash, created a compelling narrative of premeditation. "What does Morales recommend?" Olivia asked, her voice carefully neutral. She believes the evidence supports continuing with all charges, but acknowledges that attempted murder cases with circumstantial evidence can be challenging to prove beyond reasonable doubt. I kept my tone factual, allowing Olivia space to form her own opinion. The proposed plea would still result in significant prison time, 8 to 12 years. A full trial with all charges could potentially mean 20+ years if convicted, or acquittal on the most serious charges if the jury isn't convinced. Olivia considered this as she ate, the deliberate movements reflecting the occupational therapy exercises she practiced daily, rebuilding fine motor control alongside gross motor skills. "What would you do?" she finally asked. I chose my words carefully. I believe in certainty over potential. A guaranteed decade in prison means Blake can't harm anyone else during that time. A trial means reliving everything in excruciating detail, with no guaranteed outcome. "That's my thinking too," Olivia nodded. "I want this chapter closed so I can focus entirely on rebuilding my life, not relitigating how he destroyed it." Her practical approach made me proud. Another sign of the resilient woman emerging from this ordeal. Where Blake had seen weakness to exploit, I saw extraordinary strength being forged through adversity. "I'll call Morales back and let her know your thoughts," I promised. "Your input will carry significant weight in their decision." After lunch, I helped Olivia transfer to the comfortable recliner in the sunroom, her favorite afternoon spot where physical comfort met mental stimulation. Books, tablets, and sketch pads surrounded her, tools for both entertainment and cognitive rehabilitation. "The financial team called this morning too," I mentioned as I adjusted her leg support. "They've recovered approximately 70% of what Blake diverted from your accounts. The remainder was spent, but they believe the restitution order will eventually recover that as well. Honestly, I care less about the money than making sure he can't do this to anyone else," Olivia admitted. "Though I'm grateful for your financial expertise through all of this. I can't imagine navigating these waters alone." "You would have managed," I assured her. "You're more capable than you give yourself credit for." She smiled ruefully. "Maybe, but I'm still glad I didn't have to." The doorbell rang, announcing the arrival of Dr. Barrett, the neuropsychologist who visited weekly to assess Olivia's cognitive recovery and provide specialized therapy for the brain injury aspects of her trauma. "Same time tomorrow for our garden walk?" I confirmed before leaving her to the session. "Wouldn't miss it," Olivia replied. "I'm aiming for 3 laps tomorrow." In my home office, I returned Detective Morales' call, relaying Olivia's thoughts on the plea deal. Then I opened my laptop to review the latest updates from Timothy regarding Blake's frozen assets and the ongoing financial recovery efforts. A notification appeared in my email, the prosecutor's office confirming Blake's acceptance of the plea agreement. 10 years, with possibility of parole after 8. Restitution orders for the full amount stolen. Registration as a financial offender upon release, restricting his future access to certain positions of financial trust. Not perfect justice, perhaps, but substantial consequences for a man who had likely never faced any in his life before now. I forwarded the confirmation to Olivia's tablet with a brief note. It's done. His sentencing is scheduled for next month, but you won't need to attend unless you choose to. Love, Mom. Her reply came moments later. Thank you for everything. I choose to spend that day in physical therapy instead, investing in my future rather than his past. The wisdom in that response brought tears to my eyes. Despite everything Blake had done, the physical trauma, the financial abuse, the profound betrayal of trust, he had failed in his most fundamental aim. He hadn't broken Olivia's spirit. If anything, her inner strength had emerged more clearly defined through this crucible of suffering. As I gazed out the window at the garden where tomorrow we would measure recovery in carefully counted steps, I reflected on how our roles had evolved through this crisis. I had begun as protector, becoming investigator, then advocate. Now, increasingly, I was simply witness to my daughter's remarkable resilience, supporting her journey rather than directing it. Blake Thompson had gravely underestimated both Harrison women, a miscalculation that had cost him his freedom and would define the next decade of his life. For Olivia and me, however, the focus remained steadfastly forward, on healing, on rebuilding, on reclaiming the future he had tried to steal, one step at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, the gallery is proud to present Fragments and Wholeness, A Journey Through Trauma and Recovery by Olivia Harrison. 1 year to the day after the accident, I stood at the back of the crowded art gallery, watching my daughter navigate the space in her sleek titanium walker. Though still necessary for longer distances, the mobility aid had become more accessory than necessity in recent weeks as her strength continued to return. The exhibition represented both physical and emotional milestones, Olivia's first professional showing, and a public reclamation of her identity, separate from the trauma that had nearly claimed her life. The paintings surrounding us told the story of her journey. Dark, fractured images giving way to increasingly light-filled compositions where broken pieces reassembled into new, stronger forms. "Mom, come meet the curator," Olivia called, spotting me across the room. Her voice, once weakened by ventilator trauma, had regained its natural timbre. "She's interested in taking the exhibition to New York next spring." I made my way through the appreciative crowd, noting the red, sold dots already appearing beside several pieces. The proceeds would go to a foundation Olivia had established to support survivors of intimate partner violence and financial abuse, turning her personal nightmare into a force for positive change. "Mrs. Harrison," the curator greeted me warmly. "Your daughter's work is extraordinary. The technical skill is impressive, but the emotional journey she captures, that's what makes these pieces truly remarkable." "Thank you," I replied, squeezing Olivia's hand gently. I couldn't agree more. Later, as the successful opening wound down, we shared a quiet moment in front of the exhibition's centerpiece, a large canvas titled Awakening that depicted a female figure emerging from fractured darkness into vibrant light. "I couldn't have created any of this without you," Olivia said softly. "Not just the practical support through recovery, but the way you showed me what real strength looks like." "You had that strength all along," I countered. "I just helped clear the obstacles so you could recognize it in yourself. Either way, I'm grateful." She adjusted her position, still mindful of balancing her weight evenly, as her right leg occasionally protested prolonged standing. "Have you seen the reviews online? They're calling the exhibition a powerful testament to resilience and unflinchingly honest about trauma without being defined by it." Pride swelled within me, not just for the artistic achievement, but for the emotional milestone it represented. Olivia had transformed her experience, metabolizing pain into creativity, trauma into connection with others who might benefit from her story. "The foundation received 3 major donations during the opening," she continued, checking the notification on her phone, including one from Timothy's bank for their community outreach program. Timothy had remained a steadfast ally throughout the past year, helping Olivia rebuild her financial independence with the same dedication he'd shown in freezing Blake's access that first desperate day. His bank's donation to her foundation represented a full-circle moment neither of us could have imagined amid the hospital monitors and ventilator alarms. "Detective Morales called yesterday," I mentioned, as we prepared to leave the gallery. Blake's appeal was denied. The conviction stands. Olivia nodded, absorbing this information with the calm detachment she'd cultivated toward her ex-husband. Good. Though honestly, he occupies less and less space in my thoughts these days. The most profound victory, perhaps, Blake's diminishing relevance to her present and future. Outside, Chicago's spring evening welcomed us with gentle warmth. Olivia had progressed far enough in physical therapy to manage the 3 blocks to the restaurant where we had dinner reservations. I walked beside her, matching my pace to hers, ready to support but not hovering. "Do you remember what you told me in the hospital after I first regained consciousness?" she asked as we waited for a traffic light. "About how you'd ensure Blake never hurt me or anyone else again?" "I remember," I acknowledged, recalling those raw early days when rage and protective instinct had driven my every action. "You kept that promise in ways I couldn't have imagined then." She shifted her walker slightly, adjusting for comfort. "But what I've realized is that the most powerful protection wasn't freezing his accounts or gathering evidence for the prosecution." "Oh?" I raised an eyebrow, curious where her thoughts were leading. "It was showing me that his betrayal didn't define me, that I could lose what I thought was love and still be whole, that recovery isn't just about regaining what was lost, but discovering what might be gained." Her eyes, clear and focused in ways that neurologists had once cautiously hoped for, met mine directly. "You showed me how to fight without becoming bitter, how to seek justice without being consumed by it." The light changed, and we crossed the street together, moving forward in tandem as we had throughout this unexpected chapter of our lives. "The exhibition catalog arrived this morning," Olivia continued. "I was saving this surprise, but I can't wait any longer." She pulled a glossy booklet from her bag and opened it to the dedication page. "For my mother, Rebecca, who taught me that our greatest strength often emerges from our deepest wounds. Your fierce love and unwavering presence transformed a nightmare into a path forward. This journey of fragments becoming wholeness belongs to both of us." Emotion tightened my throat as I read the words, recognizing in them the extraordinary woman my daughter had become, not despite her trauma, but in conscious integration of it into a larger, more compassionate understanding of life's fragility and resilience. "You know, when I came back early from vacation that day, I had no idea what awaited me," I reflected as we continued toward the restaurant. "All I wanted was to surprise you with Italian leather and French chocolates. Instead, you ended up orchestrating financial warfare from a hospital chair." Olivia laughed, the sound free and genuine in ways that had seemed impossible during those dark early days. "Maternal instinct takes unexpected forms sometimes," I agreed with a smile. At the restaurant, we were shown to a private table overlooking the river. The maitre d' presented champagne with a flourish. "To celebrate your successful opening, Ms. Harrison." As we raised our glasses, I studied my daughter's face in the warm lighting. The physical scars had faded with time and excellent medical care. The emotional wounds had transformed into wisdom and purpose. What remained was essentially Olivia, but with new dimensions, stronger, more intentional, profoundly connected to her authentic self. "To fragments becoming wholeness," she toasted, echoing her dedication. "And to new beginnings," I added, clinking my glass gently against hers. Outside, Chicago continued its evening rhythm, indifferent to our private celebration. Inside, we shared the quiet triumph of a journey neither of us had chosen, but both had navigated with everything we had. My protective fury and strategic mind, her determination and creative spirit, our combined resilience against a man who had underestimated us both. Blake Thompson sat in a prison cell, his schemes collapsed, his freedom forfeit. But Olivia Harrison stood at the threshold of a new chapter, her art celebrated, her foundation helping others, her future reclaimed. And I, the mother who had returned early from vacation to find nightmare instead of reunion, had discovered depths of fierce love and strategic determination I hadn't known I possessed. Some battles are chosen, others are thrust upon us without warning, but the greatest victory isn't in destroying the enemy. It's in refusing to let them destroy what matters most. As we enjoyed our meal and planned the exhibition's next showing, that victory surrounded us, complete and undeniable. The courtroom was suffocating with anticipation. Every seat was filled, the walls lined with reporters and spectators eager to see justice finally delivered. Olivia sat beside me in the front row, her cane resting discreetly against the bench. She looked fragile to the uninformed eye, but I knew the strength it had taken to get here, the surgeries, the sleepless nights, the painful physical therapy sessions that rebuilt her broken body inch by inch. When Judge Williams entered, silence rippled through the room. He adjusted his glasses, his gaze falling squarely on Blake Thompson. "Mr. Thompson," he began, his voice resonant and deliberate, "this court has weighed overwhelming evidence of your crimes: fraud, identity theft, reckless endangerment, financial exploitation. You endangered your wife's life in a high-speed crash, abandoned her in the ICU, and attempted to profit from her suffering. These actions reveal a pattern of predation that this court cannot and will not excuse. Therefore, you are sentenced to 25 years in Stateville Correctional Center. You will be eligible for parole only after 15. The gavel struck like a gunshot. For a moment, Blake just sat there, frozen, as though he could not comprehend that his carefully constructed empire of lies had finally collapsed. His once polished face crumpled in disbelief. The cameras clicked wildly, capturing the instant a con man realized his con was over. Olivia's hand found mine. Tears glimmered in her eyes, not of weakness, but of release. She whispered, "It's really over." As we walked down the courthouse steps, the press swarmed us. "Mrs. Harrison, what's your message? Olivia, what do you want women watching to know?" Olivia paused, her cane tapping against the concrete, her voice steady and strong. "Don't ever ignore your instincts. Don't ever think you're powerless. And never let anyone convince you that you don't deserve better. If it happened to me, it can happen to anyone. But you can rise again." Applause erupted. The flash of cameras blurred into white light, but I could see it clearly. The spark of inspiration in women's eyes across the crowd. 18 months later, I entered a very different space, the visiting room at Stateville Correctional Center. The fluorescent lights hummed harshly, reflecting off scratched tables and bolted plastic chairs. Blake shuffled in, dressed in standard issue blue. His broad shoulders had shrunk. His once perfect hair was uneven. His trademark smile dulled and yellowed. The predator's eyes that had once manipulated boardrooms and bedrooms now held only the wary glaze of a man who had learned the hard way that charm was worthless behind bars. "Inmate 47291, the guard called. He sat opposite me, avoiding my gaze. "Why are you here?" His voice was hoarse, stripped of bravado. "I came," I said calmly, "to remind you that you didn't win. You didn't destroy Olivia. You didn't destroy me. You built us into something stronger than you could ever imagine." For a brief second, his mask slipped. I saw fear, not of me, not even of prison, but of irrelevance. Blake Thompson, once desperate for attention, was now nobody. Just another forgotten man behind walls designed to erase him. I stood to leave, leaning close enough for only him to hear. "You wanted power. Now you have none. You wanted freedom. Now you live in chains. You wanted wealth. Now you're bankrupt. That's your legacy, Blake." Nothing. I didn't look back as I walked out. But our story didn't end with his imprisonment. Olivia's recovery was a journey neither of us could have faced alone. There were nights she woke screaming from nightmares of shattered glass and screeching tires, days when her body refused to cooperate, and she threw her cane across the room in frustration. I was there for every setback and every tiny victory, and somewhere along the way, she stopped being just my daughter. She became my partner in rebuilding a life from ashes. Together, we started speaking at women's shelters, community centers, and later at national conferences. Olivia would stand, her voice trembling at first, but growing steady as she shared her story. How love had turned into manipulation, how control had disguised itself as care, how silence nearly cost her life. And then I would speak, not as a victim's mother, but as a woman who had once believed strength meant staying quiet. I told them the truth. Strength is raising your voice, demanding answers, refusing to look away. The response stunned us. Letters poured in from women across the country, teachers, nurses, retirees, sharing their own stories of betrayal, control, and rebirth. They told us that hearing Olivia's courage gave them the strength to leave toxic marriages, report fraud, or simply reclaim their own voices after years of silence. One woman in her 70s wrote, I thought it was too late for me. But you showed me that it's never too late to start again. That letter now sits framed on Olivia's desk. Life didn't become perfect. It never does. But it became ours again. We traveled, sometimes to the very European streets where my nightmare had begun. This time, Olivia walked beside me, slower than before, but freer. We laughed in Parisian cafes, strolled Venetian canals, and bought matching leather journals in Florence, where we wrote down dreams we once thought we'd lost. Everywhere we went, women stopped us. You don't know me, they'd say, but I know you, and I left because of you. I started over because of you. Olivia always smiled and told them, no, you did that yourself. I realized then that Blake's greatest mistake wasn't underestimating me. It was underestimating the resilience of women everywhere, the quiet power that erupts when one story inspires another, and then another, until silence itself is broken. On the second anniversary of Olivia's accident, we returned to the hospital where it all began. Room 412 was now occupied by another patient, but as we walked past, Olivia squeezed my hand. I used to think that was the room where my life ended, she said softly. Now I think it's where my new one began. I nodded, tears rising, but not from grief, from gratitude. Blake Thompson remained behind bars, his name fading from headlines, his voice silenced. But our story, our truth, had taken on a life of its own, and as I looked at my daughter, alive, stronger, unbroken, I knew this was the ending women everywhere needed to hear. We survived, we rose, and so can you.